The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Welcome to another episode of The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn Thing with industry professionals Mike D. McCarty and James Knight. I'm your announcer, Tyler Patton, and this episode we're going to take a look at Videodrome and the substance. Hold on to your headphones. This one's going to be a wacky ride. Let's drop in and see what they're up to.
Should we just dive right in?
Oh, let's do it, because we've got plenty to talk about today. The horror.
Awesome. Welcome back. This is episode 6? Is this 6 or 7 or 8? Which one is this?
7, maybe. Hopefully everyone had a happy Halloween, though.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It can be a whole year before you have to hear that song again.
Oh, wait.
So we
I'm
can
sure
say,
I have it right here.
Nope.
It's got to be here somewhere.
It is there. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay.
We had plenty of Silver Shamrock. And I was telling you, because I did a lot of the initial editing on that episode, that not only did I have to hear it like 7 times that night, but then editing it like 53 more times.
Yeah. It was hard to shake, wasn't it?
Oh, boy.
You know, that song is based on London Bridge is Falling Down because that was,
The Fergie song? Oh.
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Lundy Bridge? Falling down?
Is that what that is? Nice.
How come every time you come round, my Lundy Bridge comes down?
Is she talking
My
about pants?
Lundy, I think so. She has the dumbest lyrics of any pop star I've ever heard. Yeah.
Nice. That's good.
You remember Humps, too?
I don't think I do.
Or is it Lumps? Yeah, sure you do. What you gonna do with all those humps? No.
Lumps?
What you gonna do with all that breast inside that shirt? I'm gonna make you hurt. You know what song I'm talking about.
That sounds a lot like Videodrome.
My humps, it does. Long live the new flesh. Long live Fergie. Oh, Videodrome.
Hey, this episode is Videodrome and the Substance, or the alternate title, What the Fuck Did I Just Watch?
Tonight's episode brought to you by Body Horror.
Body horror indeed. The godfather of body horror, David Cronenberg, kicking us off with Videodrome. Why don't you tell us about that?
Cronenberg's Videodrome, made in 1983. We got James Woods playing Max Rinn, a local cable TV programmer looking for the next hit. Specializing in sleaze, he discovers a pirate satellite TV signal depicting torture and snuff.
As you do.
So you know it must be good.
That's right.
Convinced it will become the next big thing, he searches for the source of the signal and is drawn into a bizarre world where lines between reality and hallucination become dangerously blurry.
That's a perfect voice you just did there. Thank you.
What a ride.
Oh.
What a ride. Our Instagram has been blowing up.
Okay. Good.
It's almost like I can't escape the technology.
Yeah.
Speaking of Videodrome.
Which is very Videodrome-y.
Holy smokes. So this is a crazy movie.
Yes, it is.
Tell me what you think, because I've got plenty of thoughts on this one.
I'll start off by saying that Videodrome, when it came out, I was young, I was impressionable, I was Fangoria, I was digging on like the crazy Rick Baker effects, and it was like it was chef's kiss. That movie is just like, wow, all the fucking cool shit, the bizarro shit in that movie is just so cool.
So did you see it? Did you see it when, like, in the theater growing up?
No.
Or did you just, like, see pictures on Fangoria and then catch up with it, like, down the road?
It was pictures, and then I had to catch up with it down the road on videotape. So it probably took a minute before I was able to get into it. A lot of the Cronenberg films like that. were like that with me. You know, I probably saw them on HBO or the movie channel, right? The movie channel at the time was famous for showing rated R movies all day long. So I'd go spend the weekend at Grandma's as a fucking 12 or 13-year-old, and I'm going to watch Videodrome at 7 in the morning. I'm going to watch it again at 1 in the afternoon, and at 9:45, it's on a third time. I'm catching it again.
Videodrome, the choice of grandmothers everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's how I saw it, probably was on the movie channel. At the time, you know, it's just all about, oh, wow, this movie is so bizarre, and it's sexual.
So bizarre. So sexual.
Yeah, Debbie Harry is hot and just crazy in it. And the things that happen and just like so fascinating. And I think, you know, I mean, at the time when you're that young, all the headiness of the movie just goes right over your head. You don't even think about it. About like the weird, like what they're trying to say about technology and media and how that shapes people.
When you're young, I mean, I've seen my share of Cronenberg films, but I had actually never seen Videodrome until I watched it just last week.
No shit.
Yeah, so this was my first experience with it, and I knew a little bit about it.
Yeah, you've probably seen the posters in my room.
Yeah, I knew a little bit about it. You know, I worked at a video store for a while, so I had to shelve that. I saw the VHS copy plenty of times, and I'm in the habit of watching all the movies we talk about twice.
Sure.
But I will say, the first time I watched this movie, I was just left with a big face full of, what the fuck was that? You know? I had a hard enough time following it as an adult. I can't imagine seeing this as a kid. You know, it would blissfully go over your head, and you'd just be waiting for the next, you know, handgun or stomach vagina or exploding head. To come your way.
Or breathing TV set. Or
oh, boy.
Video cassette that's alive.
Or Blondie's boob.
That she's putting a cigarette out on.
Ay. I think, you know, when I engage with old movies or like old sci-fi novels or anything like that, you know, stuff that has a reputation, and you're like, oh, this is supposed to be super influential and this is supposed to be super good, you know. A lot of times, you know, you're looking back at stuff from the 70s and 80s, and there is that sort of like just baked in misogyny to the thing.
Sure.
You know, we talked about it a little bit with Brian De Palma and his fondness for the shower scene and stuff. Where you're like, did you really have to spend 3 whole days shooting this scene with all these naked girls around?
Exactly. Yeah. And in every movie you do. Yeah.
So I had to sort of get over that hump a little bit with Videodrome because so much of it is, as you say, it's like it's bizarre body horror and it's super sexual. Like there's a big S&M element to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Debbie Harry's character is almost she's so thinly written in the beginning. She's just sort of like a vehicle for like, yeah, tie me up and do some things to me. Like, right off the bat. They just meet. There's no sort of, like, seduction scene or anything like that. They just meet on the set of that talk show. And she's like, yeah, take me home and put cigarettes out on me.
Yeah.
All sorts of
The Seduction of Submissive Debbie Harry.
Oh, boy.
Brought to you by I'm a 13-year-old in 1983.
What's that, Grandma? No? Just turning the TV off and coming in the other room right now.
Yeah. Long live the new flesh.
The plot is hard to follow on this.
It is.
I will say, at first I thought, I don't know that I can recommend this movie. Unless you're a certain sort of niche audience. The second time I watched it, it made a lot more sense to me, but it's still a mindfuck.
It is absolutely a mindfuck. And it is tough to follow. But when you really start to kind of glom onto it, it's kind of like Cronenberg as an artistic genius coming up with just these wild concepts. And it was at a time when censorship was really, really big. You know, we had the video nasties, which were like certain films were banned in certain countries, or they were heavily edited.
Yeah.
And the Max Wren character James Woods plays is a guy that's trying to make a buck off that, right?
Yeah.
The world is being censored, and he's like creating a TV station, a public access TV station that is completely uncensored. He wants to show them the violence, the depravity, the sexuality, and they're leaning into that. So it's something that's being built by society as it was in that time.
Yeah. He goes on the talk show early on, and they even sort of confront him with it because his whole character in the very beginning, the first couple of scenes, he's like meeting with some shady Japanese producers who have a bunch of, you know, essentially Japanese porn tapes they're trying to sell him for his station.
Samurai porn.
And then he goes and meets his friend in the office who essentially specializes in pirating satellite signals.
Yep. And the moment we meet that guy, I'm like, I do not trust you. There's something about you. I do not trust you. And I don't know if it was how he acted the character, but he comes off very like, yeah, sure, Padrone, how are you?
Yeah. He's very helpful in the beginning. Like, hey, let me show you what I got. And honestly, it took me a second to slide into that mode watching this movie too. It's like, oh, our protagonist is kind of a sleazeball.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and
absolutely.
He's also a little gross. Like that. I think that first scene you see him in when he wakes up, he's, you know, making some coffee in the morning in his bathrobe, and he's just like flipping through some black and white photos, like porn photos. He has like cold pizza for breakfast, and he's like, the tomato sauce is smearing on the photos and stuff, and it's real just sort of like dirty and sleazy and grimy feeling.
Yeah. Both of these movies have a dirty, sleazy, grimy feeling that reminded me of the curtains in the sink in Number One Motherfucker's house. But continue.
In a violent nature.
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much to talk about with Videodrome, like that you say the era that it was made in and the video nasties and stuff too. And for a Cronenberg film too, I feel like this is still early in his career.
It is.
It's still got a little bit of rawness to it as a filmmaker. It's maybe a little bit messy, narratively speaking, in a way that I think maybe if he was more accomplished, more experienced later in life, he might have sort of found ways to smooth this story out a little bit.
I think that's 100% true, mostly because this was, as a lot of films are in Canada, partially funded by the government, right? Through like a grant. And they give you the money and you have to spend it by the end of the year. So they were scrambling to get this movie written, shot, and finished in 1981. And they finished it 7 a.m. on Christmas Eve, 1981. And they had some really long days towards the end there as they were trying to get it into the can. Now, they did do some reshoots, I think the following year, a little bit, but they had to get the film completed in order to have the funding, you know, all sort of work out. And that was part of how it works in Canada with the funding of their projects.
Oh, yeah, Cronenberg, Canadian. Interesting thing that I sort of stumbled across in this is, so like Cronenberg went to the University of Toronto as a student. And he's there at the same time as this guy, Marshall McLuhan.
Marshall McLuhan, absolutely.
Is teaching there, right? The guy he's sort of like the king of, or the father of all media studies. And
the medium is the message.
That's right. He's most famous for saying the medium is the message, which is kind of a heady concept, right?
It is. Absolutely.
I mean, essentially, it boils down to whatever the message is in the film or the TV show or whatever it is you are producing. The impact of that sort of pales in comparison to the overall impact that medium has on society, right?
Yeah.
Like when movies come about, the way that they fundamentally changed the way human beings interact and view the world and see each other and socialize with each other. And obviously, and TV does the same thing. It shifts everybody's perception and everybody's interactions with each other. And that whole idea, I'm sure is very present with Cronenberg as he's making this movie, which is, it's about video signals, but it makes it thematically like super relevant today.
Absolutely.
Super relevant.
I think this movie would do well for a modern day remake.
I do too.
Yeah.
I really do too.
2012, they were kicking it around, and I haven't heard anything about it since then.
Because media changing people's perceptions of reality, Jesus Christ. I mean, they might not be having hallucinations, but there is certainly evidence that the internet and social media is driving people to do some pretty crazy shit or believe some pretty wacky things.
Yeah, this movie has an awful lot to say about a culture being brought up on violent content.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, some absolutely, you mentioned him before, fantastic Rick Baker effects.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. The Rick Baker stuff in this movie is chef's kiss for sure. It's very it's groundbreaking. It's bananas. It's awesome. I mean, the living, breathing TV set, the screen that pushes out, with the dental dam, and the screen that had it had an air inflation system inside of it, and it was sealed, and it would blow out the screen like a balloon, and it's rear projected on the back. The image is rear projected on the back of the latex, and then he's pushing his head into the latex.
That's what it's a rear projection onto that? Because I did wonder, as that was coming out, I thought, this is before any sort of VFX, CGI, anything like that. So, rear projection, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And I want to say that in that particular scene, I think it was they had shot some stuff, processed it, or they needed to process it and get it turned around in 24 hours so they could project it against the back of the TV set. And they said that in the budget, that was one of the hardest things that they fought for, was they needed $300 to get that film shot, processed, turned around so that they could project it on the inside of the TV.
Really?
Yeah. $300.
Man.
It came down to that.
God.
That's like 150 toonies. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
What are you going to do with all them sheep guts then? The sheep guts. Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah, go for it. What is that like what ends up blowing through the TV at the end?
That is what ends up blowing through the TV at the end. Yes. At the end, this movie, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it just for the bananas elements that happen. But the TV is living and breathing at one point. Debbie Harry's character is communicating to him through it. It's all hallucinations. It's not really there, right? It's all hallucinations because his brain has been affected by the Videodrome signal. And the Videodrome signal essentially starts a tumor inside your head that makes you hallucinate and makes you controllable. So he is an assassin for the Videodrome company. And part of the plot is they want his TV station. So they want him to go kill his partners. I mean, it seems like there'd be an easier way.
They want...
Right? There's a much easier way to buy that TV station in Canada, a public station.
Especially that company, the guy said, I don't know if you caught this, Spectacular Optical or whatever, when James Woods meets this company for the first time, and the guy whose name is Barry Convex.
Barry Convex, yes.
I think that's his name.
Sounds like he's selling cars.
Yeah, we specialize in creating glasses for children in third world countries and missile guidance systems for NATO.
Yeah, and to bomb children in third world countries.
That is a diverse portfolio you got there.
Spectacular Optical, fixing children's eyes today for the bombs tomorrow.
I can clearly see the missiles coming now. Thank you, Spectacular Optical.
Yeah, they have essentially created the Videodrome signal, which they said they could play it during anything, even a test pattern, and it would have that same hallucinatory effect. But they're putting it on these scenes of torture and this smut because they want to essentially weed out
The creepy people.
All the creepy people. Very Halloween 3 season of The Witch, killing everyone with a TV signal here.
Yeah, maybe we should have paired those two together.
Oh, boy.
I'm guessing you like this better than Halloween 3 Season of the Witch?
I did like this better. Now,
Okay.
I'm going to, like I kind of hinted at before, I have a hard time recommending this movie. Now, we're a horror podcast, so obviously, if you're listening to this, you should probably check this movie out. But just generally speaking, I mean, there's better Cronenberg movies out there. If you're in media studies or something, I think this movie would be fascinating to talk about, in a classroom situation or something.
I feel like we could totally start a college class about this movie.
Oh, 100%.
Or have a 3-hour seminar where we discuss the medium is the message, yeah. But what I was saying earlier about the TV with the guts.
Oh, yeah, sheep guts.
Yeah, Frank Carrere, who did a lot of the physical effects on the show, air mortars and cannons, and he also built a keyboard, right? Like Rick Baker and his guys, they're working on the TV set, the living, breathing TV set, which has a lot of bladders in it, a lot of balloons, a lot of moving parts to make the TV flex and breathe and groan and veins pop up on it and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and they had all these tubes and syringes, and they were blowing into some of them. And if you've ever done a gag like that, blowing into a bladder, if you're in makeup effects, you've done it before, and you get out of breath pretty quick, and you start to get head rush, you're just like, and just that's not the way to do it. So you want it on some kind of actuator, right?
Sure.
So he saw them struggling a little bit. They had some big piece of plastic. They were probably had a bunch of, tubes on that they were pushing syringes on. And he said, I got an idea. And he went and bought a really old keyboard, and he hooked it up to some solenoids and a vacuum pump and air
compressor.
Air compressor, vacuum pump, solenoids. Hooked it all up so that you could hit the keys and either suck or blow. So he's got so you could.
This is very very Videodrome innovation here.
Yeah. The keys allow it to suck or blow.
I wonder where he got that idea. Just hanging around the set.
It must have been Debbie Harry's idea. There's a whole scene that was cut out too, by the way, where they have weird transformed genitalia, and they were going to have a crazy sex scene between Debbie Harry and James Woods. But anyway, getting back to the TV. At the end, when I know I keep getting sidetracked.
Tease me like that.
Mom's going to get mad. What happened with the TV?
Tell me more about the transformed genitalia.
The old-timey days, we used to transform our genitalia.
Holy smokes. Well, he does end up having a vagina in his stomach at one point in this movie. But But anyway, back to the keyboard. The keyboard
Keyboards and the TV.
And the sucking and the blowing.
The sucking and the blowing. At the end, the main character, spoiler alert, kills himself. Death to Videodrome, long live the new flesh.
Death to Videodrome, long live the new flesh!
Kills himself. The TV explodes, and what they did is Frank Carrere, he went to a local butcher shop and got a bunch of pig's guts, and they were ready to shoot the scene that day, and they didn't. So they put the pig guts in garbage bags, put them off to the side, and they waited. And they waited. And days went by. And this is very much like the Day of the Dead sequence when they're tearing open the body and you see the zombies make the funny face, and you see Joe make the funny face as he's being torn in half because it's rotting sheep intestines. Same kind of thing. They went, okay, let's shoot the shot. And they said, listen, when we open this bag, there's no shut in this bag, okay? And the producers and Cronenberg were like, okay, let's do it. And they said it was the most god-awful thing you had ever smelled in your life. And this is the last night, and this is Christmas Eve,
Christmas Eve, then.
Yeah. And they're taking these guts, rancid, rotting pig guts, and they put it into air mortars, and they load it in the back of this big fake TV set to blow it out the screen. And it goes boop, and one little intestine kind of wiggles out and flops over. And they're like, that didn't work.
Oh, no.
And it took them...
Oh, no.
It took them hours to get it reset. And apparently everyone was like, they said, you know, when you're on set and a gag doesn't go well and everyone's tired, this was like the monumental version of that because it was the last day and it's Christmas Eve and it's late and it's a long day and they're living in the smell of these rotting guts and they had to do it a second time. And the second time he said he just cranked that solenoid, that air pressure all the way to the top. Went, if the charge doesn't work, well, this sure will. And that's what you see. There's all this like CO2 smoke as it blows out at the end and everything comes flying out of it. And yeah, those are all rancid, rotting guts.
Oh,
that
man.
Come flying out of that TV.
Oh, my God.
There you go. This has been a Hollywood Minute.
That is fantastic. When I was watching Videodrome, though, I did get brought back to, I mean, that is a certain era of American TV, right? All the UHF stations, a lot of weird stuff on UHF.
Yeah, sure.
And also the days of like, big satellite dishes in people's backyards.
Sure. Where you could like... you know, crank that satellite around, you'd be getting stuff from the Philippines. Yes. Yeah. Those were kind of magical times.
They were. Or, you know, if you found just the right tilt to that dish, then you turn it to channel like 47, the Playboy channel, which would be all scrambled up. But, you know, your friend goes out there and holds the dish and everything all of a sudden lines up. Just your friend had to stay out there holding the dish the whole time.
I cannot tell you how many times I've had my hand on the fine-tune button, just rolling that dial ever so slightly, trying to get the Spice channel or the Playboy channel to like warp into frame for a second so you see some bouncing breasts.
That is exactly how they got Videodrome in this. Yeah. Essentially, it's the same thing. I think there were a lot of people in the audience originally who, when he goes to talk to his friend who pirates satellite signals, they all just lean forward in their chairs like, yes?
Tell me more.
What have we found?
How can I see these things I'm not supposed to see?
Oh. Right. Yeah, well, because back in the day, it wasn't so easy to find sleaze, right? It wasn't like today where everyone is just walking around with a whole, like, phone, which is a porn encyclopedia in their pockets, right? You really really had to go, like, looking for it. Or, you know, if you're going in to check out Dad's sock drawer or whatever, you had to, like...
Oh, yeah. I remember those days. Yeah. Or under the mattress. But, yeah, go on.
Sure. Freeze frame, you know, exactly how everything looked. Like, oh, the drawer is half an inch more open on this side. And, okay, this shirt is slightly folded over here. So, like, everything would get put back with, like, CSI precision, exactly the way that it was found.
You sneak the magazine of Club International or whatever it is, Ass Master, out of the out of the drawer.
Yeah, man. You had to be sneaky. You had to find it wherever you could. You couldn't just like punch in little keys on your phone and. Good Lord, what people have access to today.
Honestly, those were better days. Those were. We were a better society when it was harder
a tender time
to get to that. Yeah,
it was a tender time.
It was more unique. You know, you'd be lucky if you're wandering with your buddies out into the woods and you find a moist box of woods porn.
Woods porn. Yeah, that was the thing. That was a legit thing back in the day. I'm pretty sure just about anybody who grew up around that time stumbled across that at some point.
Absolutely.
I mean, it does feel sleazy right from the get-go.
Totally.
And not necessarily that I'm not prudish about anything, but it did take me kind of a moment to sort of like plug in to this movie. And then it starts talking about, of course, handling some real heady stuff. There were moments where I was like, holy shit, that's so prescient. Like the guy who's sort of one of the mentors of Videodrome, Brian Oblivion.
Oh, Dr. Brian Oblivion, who will only appear on television while on television.
Yes. But he said something at some point. He's like, in the future, we'll all have special names and will only be known by those names. And I was like,
that's fucking
holy
true.
Shit. That's 100% true these days.
It really is.
Your username on, YouTube or Twitch or whatever forum you're joining.
The television is the retina of the mind's eye.
Yeah, he did talk a bunch of gobbledygook too.
Yeah.
Therefore, the television screen is part of the physical structure of the brain. And he just kept talking,
okay.
But I went, what?
Yeah.
No, you've made a leap there, sir, that I'm not sure I can follow you on that path.
There's a lot of moments in this movie where you're like, huh? Wait a minute, what?
Yeah. And I think that the second time I watched it, those things were a lot clearer to me. I was able to track when he's hallucinating or when I thought he was hallucinating. And
it is tough to track that for sure, 100%.
And for that reason, I can't rate this as highly as I might want. I think it's got a lot to say, really, about, and it's even more relevant today, maybe, than it was back when it was made.
Yeah, I think so. I think this movie needs another shot. I think it needs to be remade, and because the things that are happening with the internet and all of that has gone on the past, 10, 15, 20 years, they really could come up with something pretty fascinating. It's way ahead of its time, for sure. It's way ahead of its time. It's super just like nuts. And I'm a big fan of it. How many
exploding TVs?
How many exploding TVs? Is that how we should rate it? Is exploding TVs?
I think so.
Yeah. How many exploding TVs would you give Videodrome?
I'm going to give Videodrome 6.5 exploding TVs. I think, and here's why. I think if you're an effects nerd, and I know like a lot of our audience is, definitely see it. Definitely worth seeing for those Rick Baker effects. They're fantastic. And we didn't even talk about Barry Convex getting shot in the end and the way that body just sort of like bubbles and explodes all
that
over.
Is a pretty great effect. And
it's so gnarly. It's so gnarly.
And that one, you've got this fake body that's laying on the stage. It's an elevated stage. You've got three guys that are down below. They are playing the actual arms that are coming up through the floor. So the arm, like at least one arm is real. I think maybe both arms were real. It's a big puppet, but there's guys down there that have what they called cancer puppets on their hands because
cancer puppets?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's so bizarre. That gun that he pulls out of his stomach that becomes a part of his arm in that one amazingly nuts effect, as it's like the gun is growing tendrils and pushing through his skin and into his veins and all that. That gun shoots cancer bullets. So when he shoots Barry Convex, he hallucinates that Barry Convex falls on the ground and starts to erupt in like cancerous tumors. So his head is splitting in half, and that stuff is coming out, and it's coming out of the chest. And there's guys under the stage that have these big silicone, or probably foam at the time, puppets on their hands that are just these knobby, weird tumor things that they're pushing up through with all this blood. And there's a really cool fucking photo of Steve Johnson, who was young at the time and was like a Rick Baker protege, of him coming out from underneath the stage, shirtless, covered completely in blood, because he had been under there with the blood just raining down on him as he's puppeteering these big cancerous blobs. But yeah, Steve Johnson was a big part of this. Bill Sturgeon was a big part of this. Rick Baker. You know, they had a really great crew, guys that really went on to do some fantastic things in their career. So yeah, this movie's fucking cool.
Cancer bullets.
Cancer bullets.
That's interesting. Now,
Yeah.
I would not have known that. Except for you telling me just now. I wrote in my notes, I was like, apparently Barry Convex is allergic to lead, is what I put. Because I was like, that guy's having some sort of reaction right now.
That is quite the reaction. Yeah. And I remember that was one of the posters I had in my room was the Barry Convex head splitting in half with the fucking giant tumors coming out of it. And I mean, is that something a kid should have on his wall?
I mean, it has Fangoria special written all over it.
Totally.
When you see that effect, you're like, that was the centerfold of a Fangoria magazine, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. That's what it was. It was a centerfold. Yeah.
Yes.
I had it on the wall next to the exploding head from Dawn of the Dead.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, but what I was saying is, if you're an effects nerd, right,
Yep.
you got to check this movie out.
Or a
If
Cronenberg fan.
If you're in media studies, right, in college, as we said before, you could put this one on the syllabus because there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
But for me, a lot of this movie did not age that well. Just in terms of the characters and their relationships and stuff
Sure.
like that. It is really tough to follow. I'm not sure that anyone who wasn't into the things that we just mentioned would want to watch it a second time to try and figure it out more. I did, and I think I enjoyed it more on the second time because I tracked it a little bit more, but it is a total mind fuck. And
Yeah.
you don't want to go into this one not knowing what you're going to expect a little bit. So six and a half exploding TVs from me.
Okay. I like this movie a little bit more. To me, it's got the nostalgic feel. I don't have the nostalgic love for this like I did for Halloween 3. Yeah.
This is so much better than Halloween 3.
It is. But I gave Halloween 3 an 8 now. And I swear I wasn't high. That was a nostalgic love of that movie. This movie also has a nostalgic love, but I was leaning more towards 7.5.
7.5 exploding TVs.
7.5 exploding
fair.
TVs. As he's whipping his TV. And it's Debbie Harry enjoying it and morphing into the woman that he killed that's in his bed, who isn't actually dead in his bed because his buddy comes over to check and she's not there. These are moments where I'm slightly confused, and I have to agree with you. The movie derails and becomes confusing. Even when you're watching it a second time, you're like, wait a minute. Is this part of hallucination or is this not a hallucination?
Yeah.
Or is this real? You know, okay, so he does have a tumor in his head. He's hallucinating. He's seeing all these things. Like when he scratches his chest, the rash, and it opens up into that vagina. And then he's sitting at the couch with a gun.
And
I mean,
like the no shirt and the holster on, right?
First of all, he's Canadian. Canadians don't go around toting guns, I don't think. He's part owner of a television station. Why has he got a shoulder holster? He's not a cop or a detective or in the military.
I'm sure it was because it evokes like an S&M type thing. You know what I mean? To be strapped in, leather straps, shirtless. I'm sure that probably had something, just purely the imagery of it.
Okay. Should we go to the lobby and come back and talk about Les Substances?
Oh, Les Substances, oui. I have to use the bathroom when we're in the lobby. That's what I meant.
All right. You go to the bathroom in the lobby. I think it's been cleaned.
Oui.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we're back from the lobby.
I did go wee-wee while on the break, but I will tell you, unlike Dennis Quaid in The Substance, I washed my hands before I left the restroom. I want to point that one out because things that make us uncomfortable that are not terror or horror related when we watch these movies. Dennis Quaid, wash your hands, especially before you do a shrimp eating scene.
Oh,
but
boy.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
It's Les Substances.
Yes, from the championship heavyweight fight of body horror, the old champ, Videodrome, is knocked seemingly unconscious by the new undisputed heavyweight champ of body horror in the world, The Substance, 2024. Coralie Farja, director, fantastic director, by the way. This movie is the new king of what the fuck did I just see? Elizabeth Sparkle, renowned for her aerobics show, faces a devastating blow on her 50th birthday. This is 61-year-old Demi Moore playing a 50-year-old aging actress that is falling out of Hollywood favor. This movie has an awful lot to say about Hollywood and how it feels about women and their bodies and stars as they age and people dealing with the fact that they're aging. And she gets distressed by this because she's fired by the boss of the network, who is a complete fucking douchebag, played wonderfully and perfectly by Dennis Quaid, eating shrimp and not washing his hands after peeing. And amid her distress, she gets into a car accident. And she's getting checked out at the hospital, and a guy with a very distinct birthmark on his hand is sort of feeling her around. And he's like, oh, okay, you'll do nicely. And she's like, unsure what's going on because, you know, she's had the... Am I getting too much into spoiler territory?
No, I think you have to...
Okay.
And for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, we will do, this will be the spoiler-free portion of the review, and then we will take another lobby break and ruin everything about the movie. No, you have to get in a little bit.
Okay, so
and talk about how we're going to make the change here.
We'll step into this, and she gets some information from him and ends up checking this information out. And it is a way to reverse the aging process and create an enhanced version of yourself. This quote-unquote substance.
The titular substance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
heavy on the titular in this movie, by the way.
This movie sees more ass than a bus seat, I'll tell you what.
Holy smokes. It is the cheekiest movie I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean that in the British way.
No.
I mean... It's got a lot of that ass in it.
And directed by a woman, so we cannot get too misogynistic about it, I don't think.
I mean, we could.
I mean, we will. But yes, this movie is all about beauty and aging and how someone, an actress in her state, would deal with beauty and aging. And this thing is fucking bananas.
It is the most extreme body horror movie I've ever seen.
Yes, and I had
That's
been hearing
taking
that.
into account all of the Cronenberg films and Coralie Farja, who directed this, she is admittedly a big Cronenberg fan. Actually, I think there's even one little wink in there where Demi Moore's character is staring at a wine glass and you see a little fly floating in it. And I wondered if that was just like a little tip of the hat to Cronenberg.
Sure.
But yes, this is a movie with a message. right? This movie, and the director, I think, is a heavily stylized picture, and it's taking aim at all those things you talked about impossible beauty standards, about ageism, about the impossible task of trying to stay young, about living with the male gaze and what that does to warp people's perceptions, women's perceptions of their own bodies.
Did I mention how much butts there are in this movie?
Oh my, again, you could take a crack at it if you want, but I seriously was like, there is so much ass in this movie.
Yeah, this movie is an ass fiesta.
It is.
It is close-ups of bouncing booties. It is aerobicize from Showtime in 1982 or 3 or whenever that was. Do you remember aerobicize?
Aerobicize?
Yeah.
No.
It was clearly not an aerobic show.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it was close-ups of women in awkward positions and close-ups on their butts as they go up and down in these weird, workout aerobics things. Yeah. And they're wearing, tight-fitting aerobics clothes. And there was one purpose for that show, and it wasn't, I'm going to work out.
Yeah.
I want to drop a couple pounds.
The demographic was not women aged 35 to 50. It was like boys aged 13 to 18.
Yeah, absolutely. And these boys aged 13 to 18, they're not trying to aerobicize.
No. They're working it out, though.
Oh, yeah.
They're working it out.
Praise be to the gods. They sure are.
But this movie, I will tell you, these two together, Videodrome and The Substance, we've never had a pair of movies before that has made me think as much as these two movies have.
Sure,
you know,
we act like we've been doing this for 20 years.
They're both different themes, obviously, that they're handling, but they're attacked with such ferocity.
Yeah.
By both of the directors, and I've personally found that was it was a tightrope that Coralie Farja was walking with The Substance, and it didn't always work for me because sometimes I felt there was like a lack of connection in this movie.
Yep.
But I don't think that she was necessarily trying to make that picture, so to speak. She had an agenda, and it's super stylized. This movie to me is almost like a Baz Luhrmann movie.
Sure.
The guy that directed Moulin Rouge and Elvis. It's not quite as breakneck smash cut as like a Baz Luhrmann picture.
In fact, I think it's very soft and subtle and slow and building.
Yeah, but there's probably 8 pages of dialogue in this whole movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This
Nobody
movie is
talks
a visual
to each other.
feast.
Yes, the story is being told visually, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not going to be told through, two characters having a dialogue and having a heart-to-heart and pushing the story forward.
Yeah.
It is purely being driven by a director's eye. And I will say, I don't want to take anything away from it because I think Demi Moore is fantastic in this. You can tell
super
from
fucking great.
Her was a very personal story.
Yeah.
I think it was genius casting. I think she fought.
She did
to get cast in this.
Yeah.
And it's because she got the script and she lived through this. She lived through being, the hottest actress in Hollywood and then getting to be a certain age.
Yeah.
And then essentially being, cast aside for younger, prettier actresses. And I think she's wonderful.
Absolutely.
You can tell it's personal. She bears it all, in this movie.
She really does. And and she's always been like that, right? Remember when she was pregnant and she took those nude photos
Sure.
to show...
Was that Vogue magazine?
It was, yeah.
She did it for? Yeah.
And that was sort of like wonderful and groundbreaking at the time. And
she G.I. Janed it up.
Yeah,
right?
Shaving her head for G.I. Jane. I mean, she's always been sort of like pushing that envelope and groundbreaking for women in Hollywood. And for her at 61 to play full nude through so much of this movie, laying on a floor, in a linoleum floor and rolling around like a fish, just amazing.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too far into spoiler territory.
Oh, shit. We probably are getting into spoiler territory.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really talked about, the specifics of the movie, but the places that Demi Moore allows herself to go in this, I think is just a brave step forward for any actor, especially someone whose identity was so tied to their physical appearance and their beauty as hers was. It's also a great performance from Margaret Qualley, who's in this.
Yes.
Along with Demi Moore, they're the anchors of this film, and I think she does a wonderful job too.
Yeah.
Certainly, firmly on my radar now. I know I had seen her in a couple of other pictures before, but she's certainly a rising star, someone to watch.
Yeah, Margaret Qualley, she's fantastic in this as well. I mean, they both did such a good job, and I think they deserve the accolades that hopefully they're going to get. I know that Demi fought to get this movie released theatrically, and it has done fairly well, I think. It was not a gigantic budget for a movie. I want to say it was like $17 million was the budget on this.
Okay.
And now you don't have a ton of actors, you don't have a ton of locations, but this movie looks like they spent the money. And it's all practical effects. There's a little bit of visual effects here and there, but it's a ton of really, really, really well executed practical effects. This is the new chef's kiss of practical effects as far as I'm concerned.
This movie has some, I think, surefire Oscar nominations going to it.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
It would shock me if Demi Moore wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this.
I agree.
Because it's just undeniably a brave and very personal performance, and I think she does wonderful. The makeup effects have got to get a nod because they are tremendous and so well executed.
Yes.
To my eye. And also, the sound design is going to get an Oscar nomination for this movie because the dialogue is so sparse. Like I said, it probably takes up 8 pages. Mm-hmm. And so they filled, their Foley artists were working overtime on this movie. It is omnipresent throughout the film. There's always some sort of effect or sound or atmospheric noise pushing this movie forward. So I think for sure you're going to get nods. Will Farja get a nomination for director? I think that would be a bold call for a horror movie, but it's certainly directed with a lot of style.
Yeah.
So what do we want to rate this with?
How many shots of the substance would you give? This movie?
How many shots of the substance? I really liked this movie. It has. I have some issues with it. Chiefly, I think it's a real razor's edge to satirize or indict something and simultaneously be the thing that you are satirizing. In my eye, this movie didn't always succeed on that level, but I really had a fun time with the ride. It's also, and this is just my preference, the dialogue is so sparse, and I'm always going to come from a place where I want a real human connection between people to propel it forward. And there's very little of that in this movie, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm going to give this one 8.5 shots of the substance.
9. Nice.
9.
Yeah. I mean, I just blurted it out like premature ejaculation. I just said 9.
I thought perhaps you were telling me no in German. You're 8.5, 9.
No, I was just thinking I'm giving it 9, and it just came out of my mouth so quickly. I am.
You'd been watching Aerobicize.
I've been watching Aerobicize 9. Oh God, I'm there. I've lost 9 pounds. This movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and I love 2 hours and 5 minutes of it. And there are about 15 minutes of this movie where I'm checking my watch and going, okay, all right, let's go. Okay, move on. Move it on, please. That's why I give it a 9 instead of a 10, because this movie, it's brilliant, it's beautiful, it's well done, it's well acted, it's well shot. The sound design, like you say, everything. It is artistic looking, and it feels like, because there's so little dialogue, every frame is thought out. Mm-hmm. You know, and we'll get into the spoilers when we come back from the lobby, and I'll break down certain scenes that I thought were kind of really, really well done, or at least thought out and played out really, really nicely. And then I'll get to the scene that I'm like, the 15 minutes. This movie can be edited. You can edit 10 to 15 minutes out of this movie, and it's going to be a better movie, I think.
I did think a couple times, like, oh, it's still going. Oh, there's more. Oh, we're going to get all of this now.
Yeah.
It, yes, you see the left turn coming in this movie. You see it coming, but it takes a left turn, and then it floors it. It just pedal to the metal after it takes that left turn off the ramp over all the cars, monster truck style.
Yeah. You are Evel Knievel SST cycle cranked up as fast as you can go and let loose, and you're making that crazy ramp. And this movie goes absolutely bananas in the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to where you're what is going on?
Let's spoil it all when we come back from the lobby.
All right, let's go to the lobby. I'll see you out there.
Show starts in 1 minute.
And we're back from the lobby, and there was all kinds of really delicious stuff out there, like some rotting chicken.
Delicious. The finest in French cuisine.
That's right. It was French. I don't think about the fact that it's a French cookbook.
Yeah.
And it's a French film, essentially.
When I watched this movie the second time, I broke it up into several parts. Oftentimes was eating lunch while I was watching this movie.
Oh, this is not a movie you want to eat while watching.
I realized if I can eat while I'm watching The Substance, I can eat while watching anything.
Yeah.
Because, whoa, mama, is this the grossest thing I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, you were saying this movie takes a left turn and it floors it. I mean, this movie is doing burnouts every fucking chance it gets.
Sure.
Yeah, it is just it pedal to the metal. Let's see how fast we can go. This one goes up to 11 for sure. Love the way the movie opens with her Hollywood star being put down, and then it's a fresh, clean Hollywood star, and then you see people walking over it, and you see the seasons and the changes, and you see trash on it, and you see a crack start to appear because it's been there for years and years and years, and then somebody drops a hamburger on it, and then tries to messily pick it up. No one's gonna do that. Okay,
they just smear it with their foot on there.
I don't want ketchup on my shoe or my fucking hands, and I'm not gonna pick up all that stuff. And if I drop a fucking Carl's Jr. sloppy burger on a star, I'm walking away.
It's there.
It's there. It's living there, and that's what's gonna let the rats take it or whatever. But that was a brilliant way to open the movie, showing a star aging. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The visual storytelling in this is weapons grade.
Yeah.
It really is fantastic. And this is the first movie I've ever seen from Coralie Farja. She's only got a couple credits under her belt.
Revenge is a good movie, too. If you get a chance, you should watch Revenge.
I'm assuming similar visual style. Is it pretty?
It's a visual tour de force. It's gory as hell. Okay. Few actors, one location. It's on Shudder. It's good.
Okay. Well, let's start with what is essentially the first big effect in this, which is after she's gone and gotten the substance, and she injects herself with it. And she undergoes the transformation. And in this movie, of course, it doesn't just make you younger. It creates like a doppelganger, a of yourself, or a younger, more beautiful version of yourself.
Yeah, and it sort of explains this. One of the things I really like about this movie, because it is so like understated in how they, like, you would think, I get a remote control or a calculator, and it comes with a little booklet in 6 fucking languages how to use it. You get the substance, you get 4 cue cards, and they have 1 sentence on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is the substance for dummies. And it starts out where the very first shot of the movie, it's an egg. And I'm thinking of those commercials from the 80s. The egg is your brain. It gets dropped into the frying pan. This is your brain on drugs as the egg is frying. Any questions? They have the egg. They inject it with the substance, and whoop, another yolk and egg come out of it. Any questions? Like, this movie has a perfect way of telling you exactly how all these things work very clearly in a really dumbed down way.
Yeah. I mean, testament to the direction. It's very visual. It leads you along. Yeah. You don't need the instruction manual. It is showing you how it is done.
Yeah. Oh, you inject yourself, you use it once.
Yeah. They do the same thing similar. They sort of mirror that opening shot with the egg yolk when they focus on her eye.
Yes.
And sort of the pupil like splits in two and then becomes like a second iris or whatever.
Yeah, there's like 2 eyeballs fighting for the same space, a green one and a blue. Yeah, fucking great. I mean, that was a visual effect.
Yes.
At least I'm pretty certain that was a visual effect. I've been fooled before, but there is a lot of practical stuff in this movie. There's a little bit of visual here and there to sort of tie it all together, and that was one of those moments, I think. But yeah, you were saying about the Manitou birth.
The Manitou birth?
Yeah. You ever seen that movie Manitou?
No, I don't think so.
Tyler's going to be shaking his hands up and down right now as he listens to this part. He's going to be like, what? You've never seen the Manitou? Oh, my God. I think it's a woman gives birth to a Native American spirit out of her back that comes out of her back. And that is it. Yeah, this is the Manitou birth. The clone, she injects herself and thinks, I don't know that worked. And then passes out on the linoleum floor, which would have been a pretty hard hit. It should say, sit down.
I had that same thought. Yeah. Another card that says, like, inject, somewhere soft.
Yeah.
Like,
lay down.
On sofa.
Yeah,
totally.
And inject.
I did. I actually had that same thought, too.
Yeah, because she hits that linoleum floor hard. And then she's just, like, flopping around like a fish. Full nude. Demi Moore, 61 years old, not afraid to let the cameras see her body. Yeah. And she's in fantastic shape, obviously.
Yeah.
But, she is a 61-year-old woman who's in fantastic shape. And for an actress to be that brave enough to show you lines and wrinkles and folds, it's great. It's great for her to take that chance.
Yeah. It certainly pays off,
yeah,
because her performance, as we've stated, is great. But she falls on the floor, and then essentially the back splits open.
Yeah,
and
pretty gnarly.
Margaret Qualley sort of emerges from her back,
like the Manitou.
Like the Manitou, I suppose.
We must qualify this. It is like the Manitou, which was done in the 70s, I think.
And right here is where I have a sort of a larger problem with this film that I couldn't get into in the earlier part because I would have spoiled too much or would have hinted too much away. Margaret Qualley comes out. She's essentially just been birthed. She sort of wipes, I think, the
mirror,
fog off the mirror, and is looking at her and is inspecting herself. And I wasn't sure if this was Demi Moore's consciousness in a new body at this point.
Sure.
You'll find out later that it's like a completely different person that has come out of here.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the biggest question I have with this movie, which is if you couldn't experience the joy of being young again, why would you do this to yourself?
Yeah, I feel like the ad campaign for the substance sort of suckers you into doing it. And another funny thing about it is money doesn't change hands. She doesn't pay for it. There's no thing that says the substance costs you $500,000 or something like that. There's no mention of payment. She just says yes, and they give it to her.
I mean, there's a lot of details that the director just wanted to skip over. I think because Farja wrote this screenplay as well, I think. And I think it won the Best Screenplay Award at Cannes this year. She's got a message. Her movie has an agenda, and she wanted to just get to it rather than focus on some of these things.
It is a long movie, as it is. Yeah.
But this one, to me, is the real hitch in this movie of like, why would you do this if you're not experiencing this? And it sort of wraps into my earlier criticism of like, it lacks a little bit of connection for me. Mm-hmm. Because I don't ever truly see till towards the end of the movie, there's like a brief glimpse, like why Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle, why Elizabeth would continue to do this if she wasn't reaping any sort of benefit from being this young starlet again. And if she was reaping a benefit, I needed to see more plainly what that was.
It quickly becomes the older version is a slave to the newer version, because the older version is the one that has to go out and get the substance refills and bring them back and set everything up and switch over, and then trust that the newer, younger version is going to live by the you have to change every 7 days. You must do it.
That was one of the rules written like on the cards. Like you have 7 days, and then you have to change back to the Matrix, which was the original form.
Yeah, and
so that they can essentially recharge the juice.
And the world's best customer service. I mean, you call them, they immediately pick up.
Yes.
The guy is there.
There's no tel service.
No.
They're not asking you to press 1.
No, I can't tell you how many times I call anywhere.
Español.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's like this. I'm sitting through 5 minutes of press 1 for this or press 2 for that. Are you having a problem with your internet connection? Press 3. and then it's like within 5 minutes, I'm just yelling, put a real person on the phone. Put a real person on the phone. Every time it says, please describe your problem. Give me a real fucking person on the phone. Yeah. No, she calls customer service. Guy picks up right away.
Yeah. Yeah. No need to instantly 00. Go for the operator right away.
Yeah. No, is that the trick? Do you got to 00 right away to try and get an operator?
Oh, yeah. That for a lot of them. I mean, it used to work that way. Just hit 0.
I don't know if it's that easy anymore.
Well, we were talking about Margaret Qualley coming out, and then my central problem with the movie is like, why would you do this? But it does remind me, in this scene, because she's about to stitch up the back of Demi Moore's host body.
She's been birthed out of Demi Moore, and there's a giant slit that goes from tailbone up between the scapulas on Demi. So that needs to be sewn closed.
There's a lot of, there's the close-ups of the sutures, and then this movie has a lot of needles. Like, if you're needle averse, this is not the movie for you, because there's a lot of injecting things in there.
And the first thing I'm thinking is, this isn't very cleanly. Like, you're hoping that the double that comes out of you is good enough to stitch your back closed, that you don't get some sort of festering wound for the next 7 days that you're laying on the floor.
Well, we will see that wound end up getting pretty, festering looking.
Yeah,
big
completely.
Pustules and stuff that you keep sticking the needle back in as Sue, as Margaret Qualley's character's name is Sue, just gets a little bit carried away as we continue.
I'll just say that the makeup effects team that worked on this is called Pop Effects, and it's run by this guy Pierre Olivier Persin, and I'm hoping that's how you say it. Really talented guy, been around a long time. He also worked with David and Lou Elzey on this as prosthetic supervisors, and because there's a lot of fantastic prosthetics in this movie. Especially when we get to the end where it's just absolutely fucking bananas. There's the chicken leg gag we can talk about when we get to it.
Well, yeah, we can talk about the chicken leg gag. I do want to talk about that scene that happens before leading into that gag, because this is another sort of criticism or curiosity, at least I had about the pictures. Sue is birthed. She sort of takes control. She's on her 7 days. She essentially applies, or auditions rather, to be the next Elizabeth Sparkle. She's going to be the new aerobics fitness queen.
Yeah.
So she auditions, of course, she gets the job, and she starts filming this aerobics show. She's in a leotard. She's got a bevy of fitness models behind her, and they work out, I guess, to what could only be the most suggestive workout routine
Aerobicize
I've ever seen.
Look it up.
Yeah, I do. I do definitely want to check out Aerobicize, because this is full on just like stripper moves, super sexually suggestive, down on all fours, hair whipping, butt quivering, sometimes in slow motion, and it got to a point where, like, I know this movie has, its agenda, right? I know it's satirizing and pointing a lens, shining a light on ageism and beauty standards, and the male gaze plays heavily into this, right?
Yeah.
But Sue has no desire to buck the trend. She's not trying to do anything different than Elizabeth Sparkle did. She is just buying into the system again.
Completely.
But this scene in particular, that I think it's actually the first one. I think they do two of them, and then the second one is the one where the hip sort of pops out.
Yeah.
The first one is so suggestive, and it's so, it's just sexy.
Yeah.
Like, you just watch it, and it's like, it is a bunch of super fit, super attractive, beautiful, there's a couple of men in there, but most of it, it's women.
Yeah. That's why I said this movie sees more ass than a bus seat.
Oh, and it's not just this scene, but I mean, like, lots of close-ups on their asses. And to me, this was that moment where I'm like, it was that tightrope. Are you satirizing a thing and trying to be the thing at the same time? Because I'm not sure, as an audience member, I didn't see the satire anymore. I just saw it as like, wow, this is a really sexy scene.
Yeah.
They turn it on its head a little bit later, but in that first one, I was just like, boy, these women are beautiful. And then, of course, you get that second one, and Sue bends over, and you just see her hip go.
Yeah. You find out it isn't a hip. It's actually a chicken leg, which gets you to that part in the movie where you're like, okay, how the fuck did that happen? Because Demi, who is, and at this point in the movie, Sue has extended 1 day, right?
Yeah.
After 7 days of using, being out there in the world and living this life and being like the world's most beautiful girl, and everyone's just fawning over her, and Dennis Quaid, the shrimp-eating nut, is fawning over her like a sick, driveling Harvey Weinstein type.
Like drooling buffoon. Really.
Yes. In super fancy, rodeo clown clotose.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a clown. He's a clown. I think all the men
clown.
are clowns in this.
Absolutely. So Demi is down for 7 days while Sue is out for 7 days. And then Sue's having such a good time. she's going to pull an extra day out of Demi, and she's going to inject herself and stay out an extra day. And then she's going to make the switch. And then she makes the switch, and Demi comes out, and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with my finger? Her finger, that fucking is a great makeup. It
sure is.
It's an aged, creepy, fucked up index finger on her hand. That you're like,
yellowed nail.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so fucking good. And then she starts
fungus-ridden yellow nail
to get mad and annoyed. And that's when I was like, okay, it's no good to be the person that originally did this because you are just a slave to the other version of yourself. And I don't see how you're getting any enjoyment out of it because even though customer service, who you immediately get through to, says you are one, there is no her. Both of you are one. There is no her and there's no separation. Well, there's clearly a separation for 7 days while one is doing whatever the fuck it wants and the other one is in coma land. And then when they make the switch, all Elizabeth Sparkle Demi does is sit around and eat fucking chicken, like rotisserie chickens, and watch fucking cable TV. And then go out at some point. Network. Yeah, go out at some point and pick up the next week's supply of the substance, which is the food matrix that, she has to feed the other body. And then after 7 days, make the switch back. And then, the new Sue comes out and enjoys another 7 days of partying and all that kind of shit. So Demi has been burned already by her, and she's just eating like a pig. And I was like, did she sew a chicken leg inside of her? How did that, what the fuck? How does that happen? Because there's this scene where, as you say, it looks like her hip pops out. And the cameraman's like, hold on, we got to play that back. And then you get like a 2-minute slow motion of just giant ass shot as it's slowly moving up and down. And we're waiting for something to happen.
Now, to my earlier point when I was like, the scene, the aerobic scene, I thought, this is just sexy.
Yeah.
This is just beautiful women dancing in a provocative way. This scene is very funny. I thought this scene was funny because you just have a bunch of dudes sitting around and they're like, oh, hold up. And they're just looking at a big screen and it's, asses in slow motion. Mm-hmm. And they're all just sort of like sitting there considering it while Sue gets uncomfortable with it. Now, she gets uncomfortable because she felt something pop, right? Yeah. And so she throws on a robe and she gets out of there as everyone's looking at her. Mm. And that was one of the moments where I thought, okay, now this is working for me. Because she's not just, vapidly trying to do the same thing that Elizabeth Sparkle did for years. There is some level of uncomfortableness, and it was funny. These guys just standing around like, oh, back it up a little bit. Give me a couple more frames here. And it's just like a glistening ass on the monitor.
If you've got a giant TV or you're seeing this in a movie theater, that's all you're seeing is a giant glistening ass. This movie is going to do a lot for 13-year-old boys.
Well, up to a point.
Up to a point. This movie is going to create 13-year-old boys that become makeup effects artists. 100%. This is the birth of all the new makeup effects artists. The boys, at least. Yeah. Well, maybe some of the girls, too. But okay, so she goes into the bathroom, and she starts feeling around. Now, at this point, and I spoke briefly with Pierre, and what they had, and I had done a similar thing on Dead Ringers, where we wanted to take a breech baby and spin it out of the breech position underneath the skin. And we wanted it to be something that could be strapped to the actress, and it was a pregnant belly, and we put like a baby form under the skin, and there was a bunch of space, and there was a bunch of like slippery lubricant and stuff, so you could actually manipulate through the skin, pushing this form. We had like a peanut shape, so it looked like a head and a butt that we could swish around from the breech position to the birth position. Mm-hmm. And it was a very similar thing that they did here, except it was a full torso and leg, right? And
yeah.
it had been cored out and had a channel in it. And the channel is where the chicken leg form would ride underneath the skin. So the skin is glued down to this core really tightly, and then there's this space in the channel where you've got this piece. So you bring this piece up into the channel and then slowly travel it along the channel underneath the skin, and you can push it along because it's sort of slick and able to move in its own channel. So they push it through the channel, and it looks like she's manipulating this form from her ass to her hip to her side and then up, and then it cuts to where she's putting her fingers inside of like a fake torso and pulling
in her navel.
Yeah, into her navel and pulling a fucking chicken leg out. Like a really gross, the spots where the I don't know what you call that, where the feathers go in, but you get the chicken skin, they're all like blackened, and it's like
so gross.
It's a decaying chicken leg that she pulls out of her stomach, and I was like, how the fuck did that get in there? Is that because Demi's being a pig and she's just eating like crazy because they're one? Did she open her up in the bathroom and go, I'm stuffing a chicken leg in there and then closing you back up, which makes better sense, but I don't know.
Well, it's a dream. It's because Margaret Qualley snaps awake in the dark room.
Oh yeah, okay.
After that, so it's a dream sequence, and that was where I was like, are they sharing some sort of consciousness through their dreams or something? I'm still searching for ways that can make the sacrifice Elizabeth Sparkle is making worth it.
It is not worth it in any way.
I don't know if maybe like the director wasn't a priority. Once you're on the ride, she's like, you are on the ride. You are not getting off. Keep your hands and feet inside the car the whole time. And we are going full tilt this direction now. Like, do not ask questions. Just have a good time.
Yeah. This instantly becomes a throw-up ride.
And again, I do want to point out just like the amazing sound design of this movie, because like all of that stuff that Mike was just describing with the chicken, but it's all accompanied by like,
oh yeah,
like moving through the skin, and there's so much of that. In this movie.
But getting back to like the camera work and the storytelling visually, there's a moment right after she's fired, and they give her there's like a bouquet of flowers, and the shot is the camera is slowly showing you the card for the flowers, and the card says, "Thank you so much for all the years you were around," and then like it's showing her like looking out the window forlorn, and it's a really great wide shot, and then you can see it's like a close-up of the word were. And I was like, oh man, this movie is brilliant in its visual storytelling. And again, the substance for dummies, because it's just so like, here is the clear message. Here is how you use the substance. One sentence, giant printing on a white card. This is how you use it.
It actually, when I saw the instructions for the substance, it actually reminded me a little bit of Repo Man. Let's get a drink.
Yeah, and they put some cans of drink down. Exactly.
Yeah. Repo Man does that a bunch of times throughout that movie, and I did seem a little reminiscent of that. She, like I said, and I listened to an interview with the director, and she's very message forward in this, and I'm not sure that she's concerned with some things, with certain elements. She's just focused on the visual style of it and the ride that everyone's on and the way that it's making them feel and what it's making them think about. She wanted to make a movie that makes you think about these things. There's some maybe gaps in the storytelling that led me to believe that sometimes this movie is actually a little bit more style than substance,
Sure.
ironically enough.
Should it be called The Style?
It certainly has it. It has it in spades.
Yeah.
I keep harping on the sound in this movie, but another great one that's just performance and sound.
Yeah.
Well, and the effect is Sue has now abused it even more, and now Elizabeth has a gnarly old leg.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of her legs
The
is
whole
just
leg
all
is arthritic and fucked up.
knobbled up
Yeah.
with arthritis and yellowed toenails, and it's
Yeah.
so gross looking. And she's sitting in the chair watching TV, and she goes to get up,
Yeah.
and she can't stand up because her knee is just sort of locked in place. And then you just have like a good probably 20 seconds of Demi Moore just like grabbing her gnarled old knee and
Yeah.
struggling. And then the sound design is all just like slow crunching,
Snap.
grinding,
Yeah.
and just snaps the leg forward, and she screams in pain. And oh God, I just thought sometimes it's so simple, you know? You got
Yeah.
the right image, the right sound,
Yeah.
and an actor just committing to like, yeah!
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's plenty of stuff that made me cringe in this movie visually.
Completely.
But that was one that was more about just the slippery crunching noise that
Yeah.
her knee made
This
when
movie
she
is
popped it into place.
so cringeworthy. It's so cringeworthy and so well done when you get to those moments. And it makes food disgusting. And it makes so many things disgusting. I mean, her apartment, when Sue comes out at one point and it's just nothing but rotting food everywhere. And
Yeah.
empty plates, and it's just, fucking gross, man.
Yeah. Elizabeth has essentially gone crazy listening to Sue talk on a talk show about how she replaced Elizabeth and how much everybody loves Sue. And she has this extended cooking scene where she's just like whipping eggs in a bowl and getting covered with egg yolk, and her hair's all. She's truly like a hag at this point,
completely.
because she's been
half of her body is just withered away, and she looks like a witch, and she should have stopped it way before then. And she calls and do you want to do you want to stop the process now? Do I go back? Nope. What's gone is gone. Thanks, customer service. Okay, no, I'll keep trying. You know, she should have
finger.
She should have thought about it. And when I watched it the second time, I noticed the trailer for The Substance. When she watches the trailer, and it shows you like the big yellow glob of clay, and it pulls one away, and it rolls it up into a nice, pretty little ball, and then it opens the other palm, and it's a mangled sort of ball. And I was like, well, that's exactly what fucking happens.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that too as you're saying that.
Demi Moore becomes the mangled ball as Elizabeth starts just sucking the life out of her. And you're right, those close-ups of the injection site as she goes days and days and days and days and days over, it's just bruised and pussy, and you're like, fucking, ugh, oh, shit.
Because Sue is trying to she's trying to live in the world and get to the big New Year's Eve show that she has been asked to host. Dennis Quaid has said ratings are through the roof. You can't be contained to daytime. We want you to host the New Year's Eve show. And Sue, who is a child of hubris, knows no bounds, has not planned enough to realize that she's going to run out of the juice.
Yeah. She should have just looked at the calendar.
Nope. She wasn't about it.
Yeah.
That character just lived in the moment.
Yeah.
And so she runs out, of course, on New Year's Eve. And as she's preparing, we get some pretty disgusting scenes with teeth falling out. Getting pulled from the gums.
Yeah.
One by one.
Oh, my God. I had almost forgotten about that.
Oh, yeah.
That is just nuts. Yeah.
She's just pulling teeth out of her face. I think she pushed the button on the elevator and a fingernail peels back maybe or something. Then their ear falls off.
Yeah. And she's ready to go live on the show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She runs home, right, because she's completely falling apart. Mm-hmm. And she breaks the rules again.
Yeah. Use that
the
one
activator.
Activator over again. Let's bring another one out. Let's bring out another Sue. And we get Alyssa Sue Monstro or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
Wow.
The third character.
Yeah. Which is just a weird fucking amalgamation of them mashed together as this fucking monster suit that Margaret Qualley wore. I don't know if she wore it the entire time, but she definitely wore it sometimes. And apparently wasn't a huge fan of it. But she had a big, team of great prosthetic artists helping her through, getting through all that. And boy, this is where, now there's that giant X-Men style fight scene where they're fighting each other. The old one decides, I've had enough, I'm going to kill you. Starts to kill her and then decides not to and then lets her, live, makes the switch. And that's
when she says,
yeah.
I need you. I need myself. Something to that effect. Which again, as I'm tracking this movie and thinking like, why are you doing this thing? When she won't kill her then, I was like, well, there's an interesting bit. There's an actual interesting bit of story that you can't do this because something about you needs Sue.
Yeah.
I just wish we had understood throughout the movie a little bit more what it was that needs Sue. So she can't kill her. And you're right. It turns into an X-Men fight scene.
A fucking really just disturbing over-the-top fight scene where she's smashing her head into the mirror over and over and over and over.
So brutal.
And they're using a dummy for part of it, and then they're using, a couple of different makeups on Demi for that as well. And it's just so brutal and over the top. And then ends up making the switch, and then there's the Monster Sue version that comes out. Boy, this movie takes such a fucking, like you said, it takes a left turn and just floors it and goes straight through the wall.
It's the afterburners.
Yeah.
And you better be strapped in across the lap and the shoulders. You're pulling 8 G's at the end of this
The last
movie.
time I have seen that much blood sprayed would have been Dead Alive.
That's exactly what I had written down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Peter Jackson's Dead Alive.
Yeah.
The unrated version.
Yes.
Not the cut one. You got to see the unrated one of that.
Yeah.
It is
not the brain dead version that was released in the States.
So a question about this suit, because you have truly this monstrous, misshapen, gnarled, walking flesh pile.
Yes.
Arms coming out of odd places. I think another ass, like on the head. Demi Moore's face poking out of the back, like just mouthing things. When you have a suit that is that large and is that varied, do you only make like one style of that suit, or are there like different suits for different camera angles and things like that? Because that thing had so much going on.
Yeah.
Like, are there okay, we're only shooting it from the back so we can see Demi's face, so we can leave this zipper open, or we can just put a back piece on it. How extensive is a rig like that? Because that thing is fucking, no pun intended, monstrous.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a full suit the whole time. It's a big, giant, full sculpture. There's got to be a zipper in it somewhere. There's going to be some blenders that sort of glue over to hide the zipper. The Demi Moore face in the back was a sculpture that they visually effects moved the eyes and put the tongue in. So it wasn't actually her in a makeup. I thought that's her in a makeup for a close-up, but it's not.
I did too.
It was a part of the suit, and they just visually put the eyes in. They did some like 360 shots of her photogrammetry probably, and took scans and digital stuff, and then put her into those moments. But the suit itself, it's like a 6-hour application to get her in. She's wearing a cooling vest, which we do on a lot of things. If it's a big suit, cooling vest is like a vest you're going to wear.
Sure.
And it's got plugged into a cooler, and it's just pumping cool water through tubes that are basically like a radiator going around your torso, because your torso is going to retain a lot of heat. And if you can cool your torso, it's going to cool the rest of your body, and vice versa. Right. If you warm your torso, it's going to warm the rest of your body. So torso, very important to try and change the temperature of. So she's got a cool suit on underneath this thing, which is very heavy, very cumbersome, and like I said, takes 6 hours to get glued into.
Yeah.
And it kind of fucking nuts. And then the umbilical cord birth rig or blood spraying rig ballet thing that happens.
Well, before that happens, we've got to comment on the fact that this monster gets in front of the crowd for New Year's Eve, and then as she's talking, essentially births a breast out of its forehead, which was so
sexy.
Wild. So wild. Well, again, this is a part where I was like, and I suppose some people could accuse this of like hammering the message, too ham-fisted or whatever. I actually thought it worked really well. Mm-hmm. That here we have the male gaze and that desire to see like flesh and bare breasts and stuff. And she essentially, because this character, this monster is another character.
Yeah.
It's not Sue. It is not Elizabeth. It's its own thing. It still wants the same thing. It still wants to get up there and please these sleazebag male producers, and be loved and adored by everyone.
Doesn't it staple the Elizabeth Sparkle picture to its face?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. It takes it off the poster or whatever, and glues it to its face. Mm-hmm. That slides off, and then as people are freaking out, one of the orifices on its sort of forehead splits open, and you see this breast come out and then dangle for a moment on sort of an umbilical cord before it just like plops on the ground with a wet thud.
Yeah. Now I know they did make a multiple like mechanical heads and heads for that particular sequence. So you've got the Margaret in her suit, which is the main monstro suit, and then you've got like they'll do a lot of stuff with the stunt double in the suit as well. And then there's all those heads. I guess I think they made like 5 heads, right?
Oh yeah, because at one point somebody comes with like I don't even remember what they hit her with, some sort of pole, and it just explodes her head.
Yeah.
It's a giant explosion of gore, and then from the stump, another one just sort of like inflates its place with extra mouths in the wrong places. Mm-hmm. I mean, this truly is like this part, as batshit crazy as it is.
Yeah.
There's like some masterwork happening. Right
it is.
This is a body horror fucking masterpiece. Just visually speaking at this point. Whatever's going on, it's so uncomfortable.
And this is the part of the movie where I'm checking my watch and I'm going, okay, how much longer are we going to just spray blood in a circle around everyone in this theater? Because, she's on a stage and it's a theater full of people and they are just hosing them down.
Yeah.
With a ridiculous amount of blood. You
get a couple shots of that mom clutching her daughter who's crying. The daughter is kind of like in a princess dress like Sue was supposed to be wearing. They're just getting fire hosed with blood and gore.
Apparently they went through 8,000 gallons of blood.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And I thought I'd used a lot of blood on some movies before, but no.
8,000 gallons.
Yeah. But I've also heard that it was more than that.
Holy
I'm sure
smokes.
If they're reusing it, or not reusing it, but if they're like thinning it down with water, they could have used as much as 30,000 gallons. Because Wikipedia says 30,000.
Oh, well, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
beware.
I heard that it was 8,000. Either way, that is a fucking lot of blood for one scene.
Oh, it is. It is.
That's like fucking Shining doors open on the elevator and Elizabeth Monster comes pouring out.
Oh, this Shining Door's got nothing on this. Like you said, Dead Alive is the only movie I thought was even close to this level of, I mean, it's insanity at the end of it.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest, I thought we were going to roll credits after the monster is born in the bathroom.
Absolutely.
You know, she goes, and the monster comes in, it looks in the mirror, and it's like, ooh. I was like, all right, roll credits. And then I was like, oh, no, we're still going here, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to get all the way up here. Oh, we're doing this. And then, like, she's spraying the blood in the crowd, and her head explodes, and grows a new one, and what the fuck's going on? And then they just cut to, like, her walking down the hallway, and she's just spraying blood all around the hallway, all on the posters of Sue and everything. Yeah. She's just, like, slowly walking down the hallway. Yeah, it just
emptying that fire hose of blood. Let's keep going.
Gosh.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, okay. Now I get it. Okay. What time is it? How many minutes are left in this movie?
And then oddly, she gets out and I'm not exactly sure what. I watched it twice. I'm not sure what happened. She seems to take a fall
and
then
kind of
explodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a bird involved maybe?
I don't think. I mean, I didn't see a bird, I don't think. And it's like I didn't even see a ledge or I didn't see stairs or anything. Just the way it's shot, she just kind of flops over outside and
turns into a mess.
Yeah.
And then is a little sliding gelatinous blob that goes
with
to die at
Demi
the start.
Demi Moore's face on
Yes.
it, smiling.
Yeah.
And it slithers its way onto Elizabeth Sparkle's star.
Yeah.
Looking up at the sky, smiling, where it utterly dissolves in the end.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it comes right back to where it started.
Absolutely. Brilliant. 20 minutes too long, just like this episode.
Truly, though, I mean, it, like you said, as far as body horror goes, a new standard has been set.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that it would be particularly wise to try and beat this standard.
No, there's no point. I mean, how would you beat it?
In terms of excess, because it was humming along fine until you get that final act, and then left turn, full throttle, like left my stomach in the back seat, and just absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yeah, I said this movie makes cooking disgusting. Remember when we bitched about the curtains in the sink and Violent Nature?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Throwing the eggs at the window and then pasting newspaper on the window so she can't see the poster. I was like, God, you're going to stick them to the window with egg whites? You monster.
Yeah, terrible person, you. And we may cut this out and put it somewhere else. I don't know. But how bad did you feel for, I'm just going to call him Ned Ryerson, because that's who he
was
reminded me of.
100% Ned Ryerson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy's name was Fred, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing I thought about. All the men were clowns.
Except him.
Right? No. He was a clown too, really.
Well,
He was just a big...
sweet and endearing, though.
Sure, but they're sweet and endearing clowns. They're just all sort of one emotion pushed to the forefront. And Dennis Quaid is just sleazy and gross.
Yep.
And then you got the neighbor across the hall, who's just kind of like a douchey lech guy.
Yeah, you just want that guy to take a hammer to the head or fall down some stairs.
Yeah, and then you got Ned Ryerson, right?
Yeah.
I had the same thought from Groundhog Day, right? And he's just like this earnest, oh gosh, all heck, Lizzie, you're just
the most beautiful girl in the world.
Yeah, too sweet and naive for his own good.
Yeah.
But it was, for all I say about like lack of connection in this movie, it's not necessarily lack of humanity, because that is a great scene that Demi Moore has by herself when she's getting ready for
It's fucking
the date.
amazing. That is the scene that should win her an Academy Award.
That's the one. That's
Yeah.
the one they'll play, right?
Yeah.
Because she just cannot cope with her, and she looks great, but she can't cope with her reflection when she passes by, like, Sue's looking on at her through the
billboard.
the window at the billboard across the street.
Yeah.
And so she keeps going back and adjusting her makeup and then more aggressively adjusting it. And the things that she's wearing.
Violently rubbing her face.
Oh,
and then,
gosh.
and then like cleaning it all off and starting over and then just making a mess. And I'm like, fuck, that is some unhinged, awesome fucking shit going on there. Yeah. Those are
unhinged older ladies.
Oh man, you know how I feel about them.
Good night, Mike.
That's a good inside joke. You know who I'm talking about.
We've already cut. I'm leaving.
The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
And so ends another episode of The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn Thing. Please join us next episode when we compare The Omen and The First Omen. I'm saying The First Omen is the title of the film. The First Omen is just called The Omen. And then this other film, The First Omen, is like the fourth omen, and The First Omen is just called The Omen. Oh man. Sayonara, sucker. Pantheon content by Tyler Patton. In no way does this reflect the thoughts or views of the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. Unless, of course, they like it. After listening to that, there's a few things I'd like to add. As we know, Sue is Elizabeth. They are one. There's a threefold metaphorical message here. Number one, young women have no problem when they're younger stepping out and onto someone else, even if it means destroying them if they're older, in order to get their own before they too are past their expiration date. Just like in the fine film Showgirls, there's always someone younger and hungrier coming down the stairs after you. The selfish motives of youth are blinding with the more attention they receive. It's a cautionary tale for the current social media crisis as well. Number two, the new one, Sue, is a personification of drugs. There are emotional ghost elements transferred to the other when they wake. Sue having sex with the motorcycle guy during a blackout and having a shadowy memory of it and regretting it. The chicken dream sequence shows how the memories go both ways during hibernation, and the buzz left over by Sue is worth it for Elizabeth. But like any addictive drug, it takes a little more each time. Elizabeth feels when she's not herself, she's more interesting, better, wanted. When Elizabeth is getting ready to go on a date, she shows how great she can be, but the fear of rejection and being not interesting enough causes her to remain in the shadows. Although she is damaging herself, she cannot stop. Even just the vestigial memories are worth the self-destruction. She can't even go on a simple date with an adoring fan. She needs to be the other person. Number three, the sacrifice of offspring. Nobody would actually have children. If you break it down, they cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you do it well, they become independent and leave. You would and will do anything for them, including damaging yourself or dying, for the piece of you that's gone and enjoying life without you. Yet you're still happy for them, even if you're not part of their life, because without you, they literally would be nothing. You are one. Thank you for your time. I just felt that those things needed to be said. Anyways, back to the movies.